Ladies and gentlemen, as you just heard right now from Mazen and from the other distinguished speakers, earlier this year, Morocco took a decisive step by selecting 6 large-scale green hydrogen projects representing more than 319 billion dirhams in investments. The projects are real, the investors are known now, and the ambition is massive. But here lies the challenge. Without bankable offtake agreements and clear demand signals, even multi-billion-dollar projects risk stalling at pilot stage. This is the topic that we'll be discussing right now with our distinguished panelists. So please join me in welcoming warmly Mr. Hisham Chad, Business Development and Financial Planning Director, TAQA Morocco. He's member of the Executive Committee. Thank you so much. He's Management Board Member, Chief Business Development and Structured Finance Officer, TAQA Morocco. Let me please set the record straight. And we are very privileged to have Mrs. Susanna Moreira, Executive Director, Hydrogen Global Stiftung. Welcome to you, sir. We're also privileged to have Philippe Christiani, Partner, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners. Welcome. We are welcoming on stage Mr. Omar Alawi Mhamdi, Country General Manager, Aqua Power. Hello. Let's please give him a round of applause as he's making his way to the stage. And Mrs. Nadia Hawkinson, CEO, ThyssenKrupp, is with us today. Let's please give her a warm round of applause. Hello and welcome. And last but certainly not least, we are welcoming on stage Mr. Frank Wouters, Director, MedGem Network. Let's please give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, and welcome to all of you for this final high-level plenary. We are delighted to have such a strong group of leaders with us for this important discussion. Again, we will structure the conversation around 2 rounds of questions. And then we will make sure to capture all the perspectives before we send you all have lunch. So let's please keep the energy in the room and dive into this important conversation. Nadia, I will dive right in with you. So ThyssenKrupp UD, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yes, has a deep expertise in green ammonia and methanol projects, including new ammonia cracking partnerships in Europe. So to kick us off, from your perspective, what concrete steps are needed to transform pilot PTX projects into bankable industrial ventures?
Thank you. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. Great to be back at this event. I'm unfortunately missed last year. Great to be here again, and thank you for the organization.
Well, welcome back.
Yes, so first of all, let me share a little bit about ThyssenKrupp, because you know we are, as UDA, of course, a key company providing, over 100 years, we've provided one of the largest scale ammonia plants, mainly for fertilizers. And of course, now pivoting into ammonia as a vector to transport hydrogen. We are also developing with a partner in Germany called Uniper, an ammonia cracker, which is also going to be an important infrastructure technology to be able to really transport ammonia. Then we are also in developing methanol projects with different routes. We're in biomass gasification, as well. So we're in all these key elements and believe also that we can help also Morocco in achieving the ambition of the country. ThyssenKrupp actually is a very important conglomerate and a key off-taker, in fact, as well, because we are one of the biggest steel producers in Europe. We're in the process of building a direct reduction iron plant in Duisburg for our facilities, and much of what we've seen is, of course, that it is extremely expensive, despite strong government support, to see the longevity of the current price point for green hydrogen. Nevertheless, we are committed. We remain consistent, and I think that is part of the ambition here, is that countries, regions, and companies must remain steadfast and committed to decarbonization, because what's going on, of course, geopolitically, but also the economic viability of e-fuels, green ammonia, green hydrogen, and so on, has made many companies and countries hesitate. And of course, I think for those who are in this room and who are here today are the companies and the countries who still are consistently believing that this is important. And Europe, in fact, is consistent. I think the current topic is how do we make the policy and regulations more pragmatic, because there has been a tendency of creating very bureaucratic regulation. But CBAM, in fact, with the carbon pricing mechanisms, a carbon price is in fact the key incentive, and is therefore very important for this market to actually evolve. So without the right, let's say, incentive, whether it's a punishment in terms of the cost, which are already clear what they will be, we will not see this market developing. Yes. And then for the market to develop, you need, of course, an abundance of molecules. So that's where the pragmatism also needs to kick in. What I would mention before we move to the others is the first mover advantage and protection needs to be there, because we and many of my colleagues here on the panel and in the room are taking risks, are saying we are ambitious, we want to do this. So there needs to be guarantees to also de-risk those projects for first movers, and we need to now get beyond pilots, because the time of pilots is gone. We need to already design projects that are scalable and repeatable. And that's why we are also, when we are looking at our plant development, designing standardized plants and competitive modules, because competitiveness is really important that we tackle together, so that we can really with speed implement the projects. And of course, we need scalable partnerships, because no company can do this alone. We need to integrate multiple industries, multiple companies, and connect really the dots. Also looking at where the gaps are, how do we close those gaps? De-risking technology is really important. Coherence and consistency and implementation of the policy. If we have uncertainty, then of course it will not move forward. And also looking at investment, it needs to come both from the public as well as from moving private capital, and things like what KfW and EIB can do in bridging those gaps are important. And
these are important steps, yeah. Absolutely, and I'll come back to you so we could dive in a little bit deeper. Omar Alawi Mohamedi, I want to move on now to this piece of news, which is important, that ACWA Power was recently selected among the 6 projects of the Moroccan Green Hydrogen Offer. What set your project apart in this competitive process, and what are the critical conditions, particularly around offtake structuring, that will enable it to move from ambition to industrial scale?
Thank you. So, first of all, I'm happy to be here in this panel today, and thank you for the invitation. I think what is make Aqua Power apart is the fact that we are pioneer in green hydrogen world. We are developing one of the landmark project with the NEOM Green Hydrogen Project, 8.4 billion investment, 4.4 gigawatt of renewables, 2 gigawatt of electrolyzers, and 1.2 million tons of green ammonia with Offtake from Germany. This is not the only project. Now we have even bigger project with Yanbu, and Yanbu project will be almost double in terms of size. So this element allowing us as Aqua Power to already experienced the green hydrogen project, because it's really simple on paper, but in reality on the ground it's very difficult. Yes, this is the combination of two elements, the green electron and the green molecule. Morocco has world-class green electron. We have one of the best solar irradiation, one of the best wind corridors with the steady wind of more than 11 meters per second. So this is really big competitive advantage. But green electron will not be enough without the molecule. The molecule, this is required petrochemical world. And combination of both is necessary, and this is what Aqua Power has already delivered or is delivering today with these two projects. It requires also grid installation. It requires also desalination of water. And for that, Aqua Power is also one of the world leaders in terms of desalination with an equivalent installed capacity of 9.5 million cubic meters per day, equivalent of 3.4 billion cubic meters per year. And this is what distinguishes Aqua Power and allowing us to deliver one of the cheapest, affordable green molecules that allowing us to export through green ammonia, because this is really today the career for a green hydrogen world.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and congratulations again. We look forward to seeing it scale and create impact. Over to you now, Susanna Moreira. H2 Global's double auction mechanism, let's talk about that. It has become a reference point for bridging the gap between producers and buyers. How can such models provide the predictability and bankability that developers and financiers require? And what lessons from your first auction rounds are most relevant to Morocco and other African countries?
Thank you so much for inviting me. I think that's the first thing. It's a real pleasure to be here in Morocco. It was my first time and I really enjoyed it. I also would like to thank you and all my fellow panelists. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting discussion. So for those that don't know about H2 Global, H2 Global was created about 4 years ago. And in this time, we have secured around $6 billion from 4 governments, primarily the German government, but most recently the Dutch government, the Australian government and the Canadian government, to conduct auctions, the double auction mechanism, which is designed to help tackle the chicken and egg issue that has been affecting the ramp up of the green hydrogen sector, but also in general, all new technologies that are trying to emerge. We have launched about a year and a half ago, or 2 years actually, the pilot tender that you were just mentioning. That was 900 million in total of 3 lots. These were focused on 3 different derivatives of hydrogen, about 300 million each at the time. And it was a very important process to go through, because we used it to learn more about how the double auction would translate in real life, and also how what is the status of the sector as a whole. And so one of the key outcomes was the successful award of a contract by H2 Global's intermediary, which is HINCO. They awarded a contract for ammonia for a project in Egypt, a Fertiglobe project, and we got a price for ammonia with €1,000 a ton, and that was one of the first sort of public information about what would cost the ammonia to be produced in this fashion, green ammonia. We also were not so successful with our ESAF lot, and that brought us a lot of lessons about what is happening with the sector, the issue of regulations, how that affects, but also the size of the lot. 300 million was just simply not enough money to unlock a project, a greenfield project. And then we also had a methanol lot, and that is now being open again for applications. So that might be something that is of interest to Moroccan companies, that the the methanol lot is now available for applications. So go to the HINCO website and you can see more about it. In terms of things, just to get to your question about things that Moroccan companies might consider, first of all, it's really important to be at a stage of development where you are as close as possible to feed. That's one of the key criteria for success that we have noticed in some of the projects. And getting there is not necessarily very easy, particularly if you're not a large company, because that requires a lot of investment already.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key points. Another point is that there are not that many off-takers out there that are willing to give you a long-term off-take agreement. And H2 Global offers one through HINCO. HINCO, this entity, acts as this long-term off-taker. And we have launched the second round of auctions. We have the first call for regional tenders, which happened and closed in 12th of September. There was one regional tender for African projects. I'm not aware how many, or if at all, any Moroccan companies applied to, but that is for a 580 million euro 10-year contract from 2028 to 2037. Okay. And there's also going to be now, and this is the final information that I think might be useful, the global lot, which is the combination of funds coming from Germany and the Netherlands. This one is for RFNBO compliant hydrogen to be delivered in Europe. The form of transport is at the decision of the participants, but that one is currently open. So again, interested companies from around the world, interested projects from around the world can apply to that. So that's some of the most concrete points that I can share as of now about H2 Global. And I wanted to invite you all to join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have a full session on how to finance clean hydrogen projects in Africa, and it's in the Karim room, I think in room 3, and there I can really provide you much more details about how H2 Global functions. But for now, I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Susanna, for sharing that and for extending the invitation to the audience. So it's tomorrow morning. If you want to learn more about this mechanism, please make sure to be there. Hisham Chad, over to you now. You are part of the management board, Chief Business Development and Structured Finance Officer at TAQA Morocco, which has also been selected among the 6 projects of the Moroccan Green Hydrogen Offer. In your view, what major proposals stand out, and what does this project represent both for Morocco's industrial development and for export markets?
Thank you for the question, Manal. I'm very happy to share the stage with you and with the fellow panelists. I think the Moroccan framework for green hydrogen was extremely clear and expressed the expectations in a very clear manner. When a government lands resources, infrastructures, there are clear expectations and legitimate expectations. And I think our project addressed by design the expectations from the Moroccan government. Our project is not a standard green hydrogen project coupled with renewable solutions. It's actually a vision for Morocco's role in the global transition. And this vision was built on several pillars and criteria: scale and credibility, integration, innovation, externalities to the Moroccan government and the communities. And I will address some of those in few words. In terms of scale and credibility, the project is developed by Taqa Morocco and our partners, Mueve, the Spanish partners. Mueve are frontrunners and leading banking company, and they have a long-standing experience in the hydrogen. And Taqa Morocco has been for nearly 30 years a leading IPP in Morocco. So we've gathered decades of experience in developing, building, and operating large-scale energy infrastructures in Morocco. And we've been entrusted in 2025 with another set of very critical and large-scale projects in the country, including desalination, power transfer, water transfer, green hydrogen, renewables, and also thermal flexible generation. So those elements provide the required assurance and comfort to the authorities that we as a consortium are in a position to deliver and to bring those projects from the largely broadcasted vision and ambition to a real project executed. Second pillar from our perspective as developers is the integration. And when we say integration, we mean that we're developing a project including both the renewable power generation all the way to the green hydrogen production and derivatives. And this is key when you want to achieve efficiency and competitiveness for your project. And third pillar is the alignment on the national strategy. We do not perceive this project again as a standard infrastructure or energy project that serves the requirements of lenders and shareholders. It's actually part of a wider intention to have a socially impactful project for the communities, for job acceleration, for implementation of a local framework and industry ecosystem. And this would surely bring our country to not be only an energy consumer, but also a trusted partner, able and positioned to provide electricity and green hydrogen to our ecosystem and to Europe and to the world. So in few words, I think this project we were able to stand out with this project because it delivers on several fronts, as I said: credibility, integration, innovation as well, with a lot of solutions which we envisage for CO2 offsets, and alignment on the strategy, on the national strategy, and finally, with several positive externalities expected for the government and for the communities.
Well, congratulations to you as well, and we look forward to seeing it evolve. Philip, welcome back to the 5th edition of the WPTX. You know this platform very well. CIP is developing large-scale hydrogen and ammonia projects, including in Morocco. I'd love to know from an investor's perspective, what makes an offtake agreement truly bankable today, and what terms or structures do you look before making a final investment decision?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here again for the 5th year. We've seen this event grow from a very small event to a very large event. It's been a fantastic journey. When we came here the first time 5 years ago, the discussion about hydrogen had no limits. You could do everything with hydrogen, and you could build very large projects. Today, the situation is more complex. The discussion about offtake is much more complex, but it's also much more realistic than it was 5 years ago, and that is in its own essence a very positive development. If we look at Europe, the mood has changed from an ambition of 20 million tons by 2030 to maybe something more realistic, something between 1 and 2 million tons by 2030. And we have 4 or 5 projects we're developing in Europe. You would say the 3 most advanced of these, they have offtake, and it's moving forward. You could say, just specifically to your question, there's nothing strange about what we request from offtake. We request a long tenor, we request credibility on the other side, and we request very strong guarantees. So there's nothing strange about that. I think that's not the really interesting discussion right now. The really interesting discussion right now is the development of the regulatory framework in Europe and globally, and I think a number of my colleagues have made or have alluded to this before. So the development of the RED III, the development of the CBAM, the development of the ETS, all regulations that have been put in place by the European system in the last 5 years, and you could also almost say regulation that's now reaching the implementation time in the individual countries. this will determine the success and the development of this in the coming, I would say, 12 months, 12 to 24 months. The other point I will allude to, as it was also mentioned by Mrs. Benali in her speech, is the development of the IMO. The development of the IMO in London in October will also be crucial for this development. It will be crucial for the development of many of the projects that we are looking at in Morocco and elsewhere. Lastly, let me say that, as it was also mentioned by my fellow panelists from Accra, we came to Morocco 5 years ago for the intrinsics. We came for the wind, we came for the solar, we came for the political stability, and we've developed a dialogue over the years with the government. We've been enthusiastic about the offer Morocco, that in addition to what I also mentioned, also offers a very constructive dialogue for the development of these projects.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that perspective. Thank you, all of you, for your insights. Now we'll do a quick second round. Some of our speakers have flights to catch. I want to make sure to get them there on time. So, Frank, over to you. We, MedGem Network, I just saw right now that I was going to start the second round before giving you the speeches. Please, the Mediterranean is emerging as a strategic corridor, as we all know. Let's take the right amount of time to speak about the Mediterranean and the MedGem Network. What forms of cross-border partnerships and regional integration do you see as most decisive to secure diversified offtake and build a truly interconnected PTX market?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and I would also like to thank the organizers for having us and also putting me next to Nadia and Omar. They're two mission partners of DII Desert Energy, which I'm also involved in as the MENA Hydrogen Alliance Chair. But I'm here on behalf of the MedGem Network, and that is a network that tries to foster partnerships between Europe and the southern Mediterranean countries. We have 10 countries that we engage with, and obviously Morocco is one of the leading partners in that framework. I should not take some of the fireworks away from the European Commission, but I will because I'm here. But tomorrow morning there will be a session on the TMET initiative, which is an investment framework that Europe is launching, that looks at a number of aspects that were actually already addressed by some of the panelists. And one of them is, how can we streamline regulation? If you're looking at, what you need for any trade, it's also supporting infrastructure. You need pipelines, you need ports, you need high voltage power lines. The IEA said that in Europe and the United States, it takes 10.2 years to do a high voltage power line. One of the supporting stories and narratives behind the European hydrogen, system is that you have 200,000 kilometers of high pressure gas pipelines that you can actually repurpose for hydrogen. If you then look at how that works, it takes 4 years for a repurposing project to get regulatory approval by the gas regulators to prove that you're not distorting the gas market, which is, the ultimate purpose of this repurposing is actually distorting the gas market because you're going away from, from natural gas to hydrogen. So some of that stuff is man-made and can also be fixed by people and governments, and I think that's something urgent. So it's good that is part of the TMET initiative. In addition to that regulatory focus, which is really urgent because it's keeping us all away from making investments, we're looking at skills, we're looking also at infrastructure, so the actual investments in infrastructure. So that is, I think, going to be an interesting framework, that will help us in the southern Mediterranean in that cooperation with Europe. I think one last point of that TMET framework is also local manufacturing. So we've discussed it, many people have discussed it earlier this morning, but in the last couple of years, you need to extend that value chain. I mean, As Reda said it, from megawatts to molecules to manufacturing, that is of course the promise. Eventually that will happen. The question is how quickly can you actually make that work? Cost of capital is an important aspect in that, why that is perhaps slower than it could or should be. But part of the team at Platform is that there is concessional finance. So it's going to be a mixture of subsidies, concessional finance, blended finance, all the tools that you can have to make those investments happen in countries. Perhaps the cost of capital is higher than in other jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. And I want to follow up with you. As you can see, our countdown has started, so I want to offer you all final thoughts, final remarks before we wrap up this panel together. So, Frank, any final thoughts you want to leave us with regards of these frameworks, policies, and anything else you want to anchor?
Yeah, thanks. Let me be quick. One of the things that we're all trying to accelerate the market. We're getting a little bit back from the hype to more reality on the ground. We've also heard, the IEA report recently said that we have in the last 4 years, a 9-time increase. So it's actually happening, but perhaps not as quickly as we hoped for. Now, one of the ideas that we launched is to look at a strategic reserve. If you're looking at Europe, part of the IEA, so you have 90 days of oil reserves. The Chinese are now mandating 15 days of coal reserves in the ports and next to the power plants. The European Union has, the mandate to have 90% of the gas storage full on the 1st of November every year to basically go through the winter without price hikes and all of the stuff that you have. The Canadians have strategic reserves of maple syrup. United States government is looking at strategic reserves of bitcoins. So there is a good argument to be made for strategic hydrogen reserves in Europe. If your plan is to switch away from fossil fuels to new fuels, you will need them in the end anyway. Then the question is, what if we do that right now? Why don't we start with strategic reserves? It could be something that is, let's say, government-led. It doesn't have to be the government, but they can mandate a company to do it. But the investment money, you can actually, relatively cheaply finance this because it's all asset-backed. I mean, you buy the molecules, you store them, to create that liquidity in the market. You have that strategic reserve. And that is, easy to finance. It will be very cheap to do, if you will.
Absolutely.
And that would then immediately kickstart the market, because that is where people can actually, we have no lack of projects, but we can actually, then create an immediate offtake. I think that's something to consider.
Yeah, and I'm very much aware we're trying to talk about a lot of topics in a very limited time, but I want to share with the audience that we have the Visionaries podcast, PTX, which dives into all of these topics, a lot of these topics, so please make sure you connect on the Iresens and the official forums platforms to dive into those podcasts. Thank you, Frank. Nadia, quick final word probably on certification, just to plant the seed, and then we can follow up during networking.
I will be super brief. Certification it will be, of course, super critical, and I think that's an opportunity for carbon accounting companies to come in and find solutions. So we're in the process ourselves to make sure that we measure our improvements in carbon reduction, and I think this is also, as the projects are going to need a certain certification, this is also a challenge and an opportunity. And then I would just mention also, we need also clarity on carbon infrastructure. And this is also something, just as we talk about hydrogen and ammonia and a methanol infrastructure, carbon will also be most likely traded, and how this is to be developed, it remains a little bit unclear. At least from a European perspective, this is being discussed, it's on the agenda, but it's one of the topics that we need to also clarify. Last 2 points, industrial alliances are very important. This IMO, what Philip mentioned, is very important. We need to see more industrial commitments to net zero. Even if it is long term, it triggers a lot of positive momentum. And last but not least, many of these developments and pushes of these projects must be based on government to government, region to region, bilateral agreements. Just as LNG is being traded, we need to think in the same way, and we need to look at what made LNG and natural gas a great commodity, right? It's the same mechanisms. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to look at how have markets been developed before.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nadia. Omar Alawi Mhamdi, we talked a lot this morning about job creation, about social impact. Maybe a final thought about those topics.
What is important from our side is when we create value with this project is the export of green molecule should drive local industrialization and also job creation. So to do that, what is needed is to have a clear idea where Moroccan companies can integrate in this value chain. And this is a vast value chain, starting from the wind, solar development, battery storage maybe, and the grid that need to be developed, the desalination of water needed for the green hydrogen, and the petrochemical, which is new for Morocco. And this petrochemical, we need to integrate where Moroccan subcontractor can create value. But the only thing, we need the right balance between competitiveness and local industrialization. We should not have all the burden on the first project because we need to be competitive to export. If we put all the burden on the first project, it will be very difficult to have in this nascent and fragile model competitiveness. So here the element is a trade-off between how much we can integrate and how much we need to keep to be competitive for Morocco. Mm-hmm. And I think there are examples in the world where this kind of hidden subsidies have been accepted. Like we have in China possibility to sell in the grid the additional renewables to reduce the cost of the green electron. This is something that can be done here in Morocco. Desal water. If we do desal water, let's have sizable desal water to sell to other counterparty in Morocco and not only for the green hydrogen. This will make a win-win situation between the developers and to have local development and industrialization of Moroccan companies.
Thank you very much, Omar. Philip, maybe final thoughts on your recommendations to developers, policymakers to design resilient and investor-friendly frameworks.
Thank you. Thank you. And just building on what Omar said, we're all here to create the most efficient molecule out of Morocco. There'll be a lot of discussions around CapEx. There'll be a lot of discussions about net capacity factors and all sorts of other things. But importantly, there's also the discussion about you could say, the mutualization of the assets between developers. These developments, they will take place in very well-defined areas of Morocco. And there will be a lot to gain from the collaboration between the projects. Luckily, that's already being facilitated to a wide extent.
Thank you very much. Collaboration is key indeed. Hisham, also your final thoughts as we're wrapping up this panel together, how to ensure that the project is not only bankable but also socially impactful.
Thank you. I think that designing a project that's bankable within the current infrastructure for project finance is a simple illusion. It requires a change in the state of mind from the lenders, from the sponsors and shareholders, and from everyone involved in this field. For us, we embed integration as a way to associate the requirements from the sponsors and shareholders, legitimate requirement in terms of return and capital allocation and risk allocation, from the lenders in terms of bankability, and also from the communities. And the way forward for us is to have all those people involved converge into one unified scheme in which government will have enforced regulation to trigger this demand and build the infrastructures, port, terminals, and pipeline, developers to take on as much risk as they can and have the support of their sponsors, and to navigate over a period in which we have a lot of uncertainties and risks for cost to be for development. And also from the lenders who need also to think out of the box and create a dedicated scheme for financing those projects with all the risks associated to them. But most of all, I think we need to have a social integration as well, in which we are inclusive and in which we favor actually the local SMEs into the development, construction, operations of projects in our country to have a social impact associated with those projects.
Thank you very much, Hisham. Susanna, we let you wrap up this panel for us. What would be the key message you would like to leave the audience and the fellow panelists with?
Thank you very much again for the opportunity. I think a key message I want to leave you with is that history has shown us that the unlocking of a new sector like solar or wind has always been to get us to a 5% share of the market. So we just need to get to this 5% and then the market will take care of itself and it will start to move. So that will mean that we require collaboration between the private sector, and you've heard a lot about that. It also means that governments need to use limited resources in the best way that they can to try and support the current gap that exists between the willingness to pay of off-takers and what the cost of the projects is at. So I think solutions like Asia Global can help, but it's not the only solution. IMO and other decisions out there will be critical, but I think it's all hands on deck situation, but I'm confident that we will be able to get to the 5% in the near future. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Let's please give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our third high-level plenary. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time with us and your expertise. Please step forward for a group photo of this panel. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now breaking for lunch, resuming ideally at 2 p.m. sharp. Let's make it 2:15. I hope the organizers won't mind about that, but please be here at 2 p.m. sharp, 2:15 maximum. Enjoy your lunch. Bye-bye. Good? Thank you.